Honestly, quite surreal. It doesn't quite feel real yet.
American troops returning home from Afghanistan, but with all of our soldiers stateside, can the Taliban be trusted to get all remaining Americans home?
We've also been engaging with the Taliban on this topic. They've said that they will let people with travel documents freely depart. We will hold them to that.
And Americans' fear of getting COVID is rising, even for the vaccinated. But should it be? Are we safer than maybe we fear? I'll ask the doctor. And a new surge of migrants on the way to the southern border. As President Biden considers his own Remain in Mexico policy, will it be enough to slow the record number of border crossings? Great to have you with us. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. Our Pulse of America tonight, the unofficial end of summer. It's brought Americans new concerns and questions about COVID-19. A new poll shows concern is growing among even partially or fully vaccinated adults. 52% are worried about catching the virus. That's up from 32% in late June. But is that concern warranted? The New York Times reports new data suggesting the chances are more like 1 in 5,000 per day, 0.02%. That's just 2/100ths of 1% of a breakthrough case. Again, among the vaccinated, and it may be even higher, 1 in 10,000. The chances of the unvaccinated getting the virus, of course, are much higher. Here's what we saw this weekend. Jam-packed college football stadiums, which was a stark picture considering the continued debate over mask and vaccine mandates. Hospitals in a number of states reportedly running low on beds. Despite where you may be on the debate, one fact remains. The vaccines are effective. For those who get the shot, the chances of getting the virus are very small. And understand as well, there's a difference between getting the virus and getting seriously sick or dying from the virus, as we're seeing among the unvaccinated. In a study that looked at COVID deaths this year, nearly all, as you can see there, up to 99.9% were unvaccinated. Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland says the White House has a messaging problem on vaccines and boosters. If more than half of the vaccinated are concerned about catching the virus when their chances are so small, is he right? This is the Fox Theater in Detroit. Capacity just more than 5,000. As a hypothetical, if all these folks were vaccinated, only one would catch COVID today, and odds are symptoms would be mild. And that's where we start tonight with political strategist Laura Fink and Dr. Amish Adalja, an infectious disease specialist, Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Dr. Adalja, let's start with you and talk about messaging here. Why are the vaccinated so concerned if the numbers are overwhelmingly in their favor? And in your opinion, is there a messaging problem?
There definitely is a messaging problem. When you look at who's getting infected, who's getting hospitalized, it's by and large the unvaccinated. However, that's not what breaks through kind of in the press reports. When you hear about breakthrough infections happening at places like Provincetown or other celebrities getting infected, like the New York Yankees, that starts to skew people's minds, and they start thinking that this is something that's very common. And when you look at the data, it's very unlikely, if you're fully vaccinated, that you get a breakthrough infection. Yes, they occur. Yes, they're getting more common in certain areas where there's high spread, but it's not something to worry about to the degree that people are. And remember, a breakthrough infection in a vaccinated person is likely to be mild, like the common cold. And I think that really shows the power of these vaccines.
Laura, President Biden's making what the White House is calling a major COVID announcement tomorrow. So the question is, will there be clarity? Because critics think at this point he may be trying to pivot still away from Afghanistan.
Well, I think that what we're seeing are the limits of the bully pulpit, both with respect to the risks to unvaccinated and to vaccinated people. We know right now that Americans still are unvaccinated at rates that the virus is continuing to morph, which is a problem, obviously, for our hospitals, for our frontline folks, and for the people that are dying of COVID. So in order to get life back to normal and to prevent those deaths, we've got to get more people vaccinated. That means that vaccinated people have to feel and understand understand that they're at very low risk for contracting the disease, and it means we've got to confront the issues with unvaccinated folks. So all of this on President Biden's desk. But I also think, there's a responsibility of trusted messengers, both in the community and leaders on the sides of both parties. Right now, we know 30% of Republicans are averse to getting the vaccine. We know young people are averse to getting the vaccine, and we know that communities of color don't have access. All of these are challenges that will have to be tackled by this administration and by everyone in this country.
Dr. Maryland's governor has been complaining about messaging for a couple of administrations now. President Biden's going to outline a new 6-point COVID plan tomorrow. Are you afraid at sort of a COVID fatigue point here? I mean, honestly, is anyone going to be listening to point number 4 or 5?
I do think that there is a lot of COVID fatigue going on, even amongst my own field. I've been taking care of COVID patients all day today. I'm still at the hospital. This is a real issue that's happening. But I do think we have to get this right. There are important tools that can be brought to bear to make COVID a less disruptive force. And number one has to be the vaccine. We also need more rapid tests. But we have to realize that COVID isn't going anywhere. And the best way to put this pandemic behind us is to get our high-risk people vaccinated, because we cannot have hospitals continually worrying about capacity problems because the unvaccinated are getting infected and taking up hospital space. That's what's happening right now today, just outside this door that I'm speaking to you behind. This has to be something that we get right, because we can't afford to continue to go through this up and down cycle with the pandemic, especially when we have a tool like the vaccine that's readily available that really fixes this problem for us.
If that's the message, Laura, isn't it aimed specifically at the unvaccinated?
It has to be directed to the unvaccinated, because the unvaccinated right now are unpersuaded. And once again, it's not just about the message that we convey, it's about the messengers. You need people that the unvaccinated folks trust. For many in cities that may have an aversion to the vaccine because of fear, you need trusted messengers. You need members of their church. You need people that are leading their unions. You need community leaders to all get out up there on the front lines and help. And on the Republican side, I think you need to see more Republican leaders aggressive in terms of championing the benefits of the vaccine and the risks both to individuals and to the community at large of not getting the vaccine. All of that. I mean, we really do need all hands on deck, because this is a really durable problem, and it's one that we have to see fixed for us to move on and move forward.
Doctor, it's interesting to me that you're seeing these patients and you're seeing them today even. What are they saying to you? Because according to the numbers, the vast majority, if not almost all of them, are unvaccinated.
Some of them say they just didn't want the vaccine. One person today told me that it wouldn't have worked anyway if he got the vaccine. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think it's very sad, because right now, COVID-19 is a vaccine preventable cause of illness, a vaccine preventable cause of hospitalization, a vaccine preventable cause of death. And what's happened is this whole pandemic has gotten so much politics injected into it that we've got this group of the population that will not get the vaccine to their own detriment. And at the same time, they're putting their own community hospitals into dire straits, because that's where they're going to come for care when they're not vaccinated. They're going to come to the hospital and they're going to take up a hospital bed, and the hospitals are going to have a difficult time continuing operations. It's that same cycle. And we had an excuse before when there was no vaccine, but right now this is all self-inflicted, which makes it really just tragic and a horrible situation.
Yeah, that's Laura. I was going to ask you, because it seems insensitive. We've talked about it on this broadcast, but others have said this is almost a Darwinian moment in our society, as harsh as that sounds.
Well, I hope it's also a little bit about sort of the role that we play in media, and those of us in media, that we get into these echo chambers of disinformation, and then that all of a sudden becomes truth. This is what we're up against in terms of getting information into the hands of individuals. But again, those one-on-one conversations really make a difference. I was doing some work with a group that was working on vaccinating frontline workers in the leisure and travel industry, and I will tell you, many of them voiced the same, and they were eradicated one by one, and gotten up because they had a professional there.
All right, I think we're having trouble with your signal, Laura. So Dr. Adalja, I'll give you the last crack at that. You deal with it every day. Again, it's harsh, but we're at a point where there's not much more we can do, right? It's there, it's available. Take it if you want. If you don't, you're going to deal with the consequences.
That's sadly what's happening, is that this virus is going to find you if you're unvaccinated. And if you are at high risk for hospitalization, you are somebody that is going to end up in the hospital, and you may die from this. And it's all preventable. And I think that's what makes this something that we never thought we would be facing. We thought that the pandemic would end when people got the vaccine because they'd want it. We didn't think that we would be facing a pandemic of vaccine hesitancy.
All right. Dr. Amos Shadalja and political consultant Laura Fink, thank you both for weighing in tonight. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get more on this now from Dr. Daniel LaRoche, a physician at Mount Sinai in New York and the president of Advanced Eye Care of New York. Doctor, you're so convinced of the importance of the vaccine, you say it's unfair for unvaccinated patients to even go to the hospital for treatment. We've been talking about messaging here. Is that your message?
Well, the thing is, first, we have to do a better job at educating the community about the vaccine and how safe it is and how it can prevent the COVID virus deaths and pathology that occurs that can lead to serious illness. That's first and foremost. We still have a lot of room to do with educating patients, educating underserved communities, educating the Latino population, educating the poor community. That's one. Then we can create incentives, whether it's with gift cards to get vaccination and the private sector creating incentives to get people vaccinated.
Right. Well, nothing's really worked up to
penalties.
this point. Yeah.
Well,
but I mean, I guess to your
and then
point,
penalties. But there are some people who, for whatever reason, refuse to get vaccinated. For whatever reason, whatever the incentive, whatever the penalty is. Now, those people, if they refuse to get vaccinated, that is your right. But if that's going to be your right, when you get infected with the COVID virus, then stay home. Don't infect my colleagues. Don't take up the space of a bed from another patient of mine that needs resources for their asthma, for their heart disease, for their GI. You know, if you want to really, you feel that strong about your right and you don't trust medicine, you don't trust the science, you don't trust doctors, you don't trust the vaccine, well then why do you trust doctors when you get vaccinated and you're short of breath?
Right. I'm sure people watching
consistent.
will ask, doctor, can you do that ethically? I mean, I know you're not saying you won't treat them, but there are some who are saying that. In Florida, I know we heard of today, doctors who say they won't.
Well, I'm in New York, and we're doing better with the vaccination rate. We're like over 60%. But I can see at a certain point if this continues to go on, because we take care of sick patients in our office.
Right.
If someone comes in unvaccinated, they can transmit their virus. If they're infected, they could be a sliding transmitter to other patients in our office or in my office and make them sick, where they could bring it home to their family members. So I think there's a window of opportunity for people to get vaccinated to help prevent deaths from COVID. Look at Iceland, for example. Iceland is 80% vaccinated. They've had 0 deaths since May. And when you ask someone from Iceland why they got vaccinated, they say it's their civic duty. And so we need to step in that direction, because this vaccination works very well. And so providing incentives, providing better education, putting resources in underserved communities where we know, for example, in Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, they're under the 40% range, okay? They're lagging. So we need to put more resources in those areas to educate people, provide incentives, and eventually down the line provide penalties and to help increase and get rid of this pandemic.
I realize it may not be apples to apples, doctor, but isn't this a bit like a cancer doctor saying smokers shouldn't come for treatment? I mean, that's who gets lung cancer, isn't it?
Yes, to some extent, but smoking's been around for decades. Public information and education has been around for decades. This is a relatively new thing with a pandemic. There are seeds of mistrust within the community, particularly the African-American community, because of history of experimentation and things of this nature. There's also a lack of understanding of how safe the mRNA vaccine is. I know some of my patients, for example, say, well, if I take this vaccine, I'll become infertile, this can kill me. And so we need to do a better amount of education. For example, in the African-American community, there's a shortage of physicians and healthcare providers within the African-American community. So that's why they're lagging with the vaccination, because the message is not getting 100% there because of that. So we need to put more resources in the African-American community, Afro-Latino community, and poor communities to really educate, provide incentives, and then penalties.
Yeah, we saw the stat there, 28% of black young African-Americans in New York have only been vaccinated. Dr. Daniel LaRoche, thanks for your perspective tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thousands of migrants making their way to the U.S. border in caravans. How border communities are preparing for this wave. And the U.S. has seen a major spike in the amount of fentanyl coming across the border in recent months. Now, a TV star is believed to have possibly fatally overdosed on that drug. We'll get into that next. And don't forget, you can follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. The southern border is already at capacity, but now multiple migrant caravans are reportedly traveling through Mexico, making their way to the U.S. Joining me now with more on that, News Nation's Marky Martin. Marky, you and I just talked about this migrant caravan down in southern Mexico that was detained last week. Tell us now about this even larger one that's apparently making its way to the U.S.
Hey, Joe. So, yeah, this latest caravan that we're following is comprised of 400 migrants making their way from southern Mexico to the United States. And we're told that they left the area of Tapachula on Saturday morning, despite all these thousands of Mexican National Guard troops being deployed across the region to really crack down on these caravans, slow them down in their tracks. And we're told that this specific caravan is mainly made up of Central Americans and Haitians, many of whom told authorities that they were fleeing their home countries and really escaping poverty and violence that they were experiencing there. And we can also tell you that, Joe, this weekend, several of them were detained after run-ins with those Mexican authorities.
We talked about it last. The Border Patrol had actually broken up that group in southern Mexico, yet they're not breaking this one up. Do we know more about that or why?
And they have detained a few of these migrants that are traveling in this caravan. But yeah, Joe, you and I dissecting some of the latest video just last week. And we can tell you the president has still ordered those National Guard troops, 14,000 of them, if not more at this point, to stay, be deployed along Mexico, specifically in that southern Mexico region, and really stop them in their tracks, like we just said. And especially, he's been under pressure from the United States as we continue to face our own continued surge along our border here. His message to undocumented migrants specifically: stay in southern Mexico, while also urging the United States to find them help and to find them work. Joe.
Marky, if we can get you through the traffic there, one other question. Is there any indication where these groups are heading?
Yes, so we know of 3 specific regions that have really been put on high alert, if you will. Those regions would be Tijuana, and then you have the city of Reynosa, which is just to the south of McAllen, and then thirdly you have Juarez, which you can see from El Paso. So a lot of those border city leaders in those areas being prepared to start seeing these caravans coming in the coming weeks. And a lot of those migrant offices, advocates, care providers in the area prepared to offer help and what limited shelter they even have in those areas. And Joe, it's not just this group of 400 we talked about right off the top. We're also told that several different groups of migrants and these caravans formed over the weekend to start making their way to the United States. Joe.
All right, Marky Martin, live for us tonight in Texas. Thank you for the update. Joining me now for more, Art Del Cuedo, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council. Art, so what are the options now when and if these caravans get to the U.S.? What will happen?
Well, unfortunately, the current administration has created that magnet once again, where these individuals know that once they cross into the U.S., they claim asylum. They get to see an asylum officer, and then they get released in the United States, and then they have to wait for their court date, which we've said many times, a lot of times they don't show up. So, you know, the apprehensions are up, and I see a lot of people say, oh, look, there's a lot of apprehensions. What the public needs to understand is, of these apprehensions, the majority are getting released in the United States, and chances of them, you know, going to their asylum hearings are slim to none.
So what if, and we know legally now, there is a court order that's going to reinstate remain in Mexico. It's being challenged, of course, but if that were to go back into place, which the Biden administration is apparently making preparations for, his own version of remain in Mexico, how would that impact what's happening?
So I'm not sure what their version is going to be, but I can tell you that the version that was put out by the last administration when President Trump was in office, not only did it work in a way that people had to wait outside before they went to their court order, but at the same time, it acts as a deterrent. Right now, there is no deterrent. So everyone can just claim asylum and they get released. When you have to remain in Mexico, when you see that reality, what happens is the false claims are less likely to want to make the trek all the way to the border. And as Congress has said, and you know, the left-leaning congressmen have said, that the reality, these individuals that actually claim asylum, it's less than 10% that are actual asylum claims. Then why is it that right now we're just releasing everyone without any question?
What's changed with Mexico, Art? We're seeing them crack down on these caravans in southern Mexico. We understand that if this Remain in Mexico policy does get reinstated, that would require some cooperation with the Mexican government. Have things changed with them?
I'm not sure where their stance would have been, but obviously when we had the last administration that was able to, talk to these people and explain to them, hey, this is the reality. But I have friends I have family and I have friends in Mexico, and they say it all the time. The reality of what's happening is a lot of these individuals are coming through their country, and they're taking advantage of Mexico themselves. The difference here, this is what it is. When you're coming through Mexico, those individuals down there, they don't tolerate it. They don't like it. Except when we speak up in America, people are quick to raise up the racist question. The thing is, each country has to be responsible for what's happening. Mexico's in between, but they certainly have a responsibility to their own citizens, and they have a responsibility to America because they're coming through their country, and some of them are taking bribes and assisting the criminal element, the smugglers, the human smugglers, and the cartels to bring these people into our southern border.
It didn't look like they were being very tolerant with that group down in southern Mexico, Art, but there is another thing I did want to get you on, and that is the amount of fentanyl that's coming across the border. I know we have a graphic of this. 9,300 pounds seized this fiscal year. That's almost twice as much as last year. Here's a look at the numbers right now. And we're also learning from police sources telling the Daily Mail that fentanyl may have been responsible for a death we all followed over the last day. That's actor Michael K. Williams. There was a seizure in Memphis, a shipment that was headed for Houston that, as I understand it, was enough to kill 1.4 million people. And then there was a party in L.A. where 3 people had ingested cocaine that had been laced with fentanyl. What do we do about this, Art?
You have to crack down. It's a domino effect. When you're seeing the large caravans come across and, agents have to respond to this, and in turn, they have to process. So what you do is you're removing agents from the line in order to do the processing of these individuals, to include taking care of unaccompanied juveniles. The drug smugglers, the drug cartels, they're aware of that. They use that to their advantage so they can bring the drugs across when the agents are preoccupied in processing centers. That's what's happening. It's a complete domino effect. And look, I'm aware of, that there was a death recently, but how about the hundreds of deaths that occur throughout the year in America because of these drugs that are being brought across the border? And all of this is a domino effect because we have an administration right now that is not taking it serious.
Art, this may be more DEA, but you may have some experience with how this is handled. But why are drug dealers using fentanyl to cut whatever drugs they're cutting when it's so deadly?
Well, because they don't care. All they care about is to get people to become addicted to these drugs. And it's easy for them to manufacture, and they have different processing plants that do it. And it's just easy for them to bring across. Another thing, it's so expensive, right? But all you need is a little bit of it. So you can take a small amount and cross it into the United States and make it, flourish and be more of a drug than it is with regular cocaine. And they're doing it quite often. And like I said, they distract agents from the line. They know that there's gaps there, and that's when they take advantage to bring all their products across. We're seeing a higher amount of fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin come across the borders lately.
Art Cuedo, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, thanks for the time.
Thank you for having me.
The Supreme Court has voted not to block the Texas abortion law. Now the Biden administration plans to take matters into its own hands. More on that. And with millions of Americans still out of work, how companies are luring workers off the couch and back into the office. That's ahead. Right now, Democrats are staring down what's being called a nightmare September, jam-packed with deadlines and fights over their top priorities. When lawmakers return to Washington, they'll have to juggle averting a government shutdown in a matter of days, a looming decision about the debt ceiling, a voting rights clash set to come to the Senate floor in mid-September, There's also lingering Afghanistan fallout. And here to talk about all of that and what's ahead is our friend Lanhee Chen. He's been a political analyst for us before, done some work for Mitt Romney, and is currently running for comptroller in California. It's good to have you again, Lanhee, and it's good to see Julia Manchester, as always, from the Hill. Julia, let's start with you and this situation that's going to unfold here in September. What are the landmines ahead?
Well, there's a lot of landmines, Joe. And remember, this really comes after a very rough couple of weeks for Joe Biden in dealing with Afghanistan. We know that there is going to be a lot of pressure in the Senate to question Biden administration officials, not only from Republicans, but from Democrats, too. So you have that. You also have this business of passing the $1 trillion infrastructure package along with that $3.5 trillion spending package that Democrats would like to get passed. Now, Senator Joe Manchin threw a bit of a wrench in that last week when he said they needed to pause on those negotiations. And we see that Manchin and Kristen Sinema, another Democratic moderate, have expressed quite a bit of skepticism to passing that. Now, that's created tensions with progressives in the party. On top of that, we see that Democrats and Republicans need to deal with the situation of a looming government shutdown next week. And on top of that, you're seeing that Democrats want to tackle this issue of abortion rights in the Senate and in the House after we saw that law was passed in Texas. So you have all of this happening, Joe. But the issue is in the month of September, there's really only so much you can pack in here because remember, senators don't get back until Monday. And then we also have a Jewish holiday after that. So it's going to be very jam-packed.
Lanhee, what do you think? It's going to be a busy month. We know that. We've pretty much established that. Do you see any of these as problematic packages to get through? Which one will be the toughest?
Well, I think they're all problematic in their own ways. I think the challenge is that you have one piece of legislation that's probably a must-pass from the perspective of the full faith and credit of the United States, and that's the debt ceiling. And of course, the challenge now is the debt ceiling has gotten wrapped into the contentious discussions about the Democrats' $3.5 trillion budget deal. And so once you start to have this mixing of something that Democrats want to pass with something that they don't necessarily want to pass but know they have to pass, you create some challenging dynamics. So the debt ceiling is going to have to get done. It is going to have to get done sometime in September, but we'll see how that squares with Democrats' plans to do all of this other legislation, as you pointed out.
Julia, give us one issue that you think could have legs. In other words, moving forward, it could potentially carry into next year's elections.
Well, I think the issue that you're going to see Democrats in particular really grip onto is this issue of abortion. And you're already seeing Democrats in other races happening this year in this election cycle really seizing upon that issue. You're seeing a lot of Democrats in states like Virginia, for example, trying to say, look, if it happened in Texas, this very restrictive ban on abortion, it can happen anywhere. And I got to tell you, Joe, talking to a lot of Republican sources in Washington, what I'm hearing is they don't want to talk about this issue. They would rather focus on the economy or the crisis at the border, rising crime. So I think you're going to see Democrats really latch onto that abortion issue. But I think you're going to see Republicans want to talk about the economy, rising prices, and the labor shortage.
Right. Lanhee, you know better than any that voters have short memories. Is there one of these issues that sticks, do you think, next year?
They do have short memories. I think the economy is always front and center in midterm elections. It is always a critical issue, particularly if the economy continues to kind of bump along and you still see the number of job openings exceed the number of unemployed. I think that is going to continue to be an issue. I would not discount, Joe, the Afghanistan issue. I think the national security challenges, I think the way in which this ended, those are going to continue to be issues that Republicans will want to keep front and center as they look at and evaluate Joe Biden's performance. Remember, the midterm election, the first midterm election for a new president, is traditionally a difficult one for him. Moreover, it's going to be one of those things where Republicans are going to say, look at Joe Biden's job performance, looking backwards. Do you think that he should continue to hold majorities in both houses of Congress? And I think those are the issues Republicans want to prosecute in next year's election.
Lanhee, let's go back to you on this one because you're familiar with California and the recall now just a week away. Getting interesting at the finish line for Governor Newsom. Handicap this for us. What happens? Does he survive?
Well, here's the issue. The enthusiasm in this election has been on the side of those who wish to remove Gavin Newsom, those who believe he has not done a good job of presiding over the state during this time of COVID-19, a sluggish economy, wildfires, etc. And so the big question is going to be, Joe, will Republicans turn out and vote at the same level at which they've expressed enthusiasm to remove him? So far, Republican ballots have trailed. That's why it's important for those who want to remove Gavin Newsom to actually cast those ballots. We have some in-person balloting taking place now. We have mail balloting in California. So far, the returns have tilted toward the Democrats. If Republicans want to have any shot, if those who want to remove Newsom want to have any shot, they're going to have to begin to vote and get those ballots in between now and next Tuesday.
Julia, Newsom's bringing out the big hitters. What are your sources watching?
You know, I think they're going to watch what these big hitters, such as President Joe Biden, talk about and how they are able to turn out this base. Look, the math doesn't work for Republicans in California. But that being said, there obviously needs to be a prime Democratic turnout come the recall election. And we know that the Republicans have the enthusiasm. So I think you're going to hear Joe Biden possibly quoting former President Obama saying, "Don't boo, vote, get out to the polls." And we're also seeing Gavin Newsom take this strategy of quote unquote vote and go. So essentially, vote no on the recall and then leave, essentially don't pick anyone else besides Newsom on that ballot. So you're seeing some of the other Democrats running in that race becoming rather upset with that. But I think this ultimately comes down to enthusiasm and turnout.
Lonnie, let's get you on the economy before we let you both go. Actually, we'll start with you, though, and your thoughts on the enhanced unemployment benefits expiring yesterday. What do we do to get people back to work?
Well, look, I think the job opportunities are there. I think you're seeing employers recognizing it's a competitive labor market. You're seeing, as you've reported, a lot of employers who are putting huge bonuses in front of people. I think some of this is going to be the labor market coming back to work, coming back to these opportunities. And we need it, Joe. If this economy is going to prosper and continue to grow, we need those job openings to be filled. We need them particularly in the service, hospitality, and leisure sector, but also some white-collar jobs which are vacant as well. So what you're seeing is across the economy, there's tremendous economic opportunity out there for workers to go out and grab. I think the end of these benefits in some ways will begin to normalize the labor market, begin to get rid of some of those job openings and get people back to work, which in the long run is absolutely what we want.
But states, Julia, that ended these enhanced benefits early didn't see an uptick in the people taking jobs that they thought they would.
Right. We didn't see that uptick, and we actually saw more people staying home. So I think you're going to see a lot of these bonuses that people are essentially that employers are offering to employees to come and work for them. You're going to start to see more of them. And you're not only going to see them in the private sector, but you're going to start to see them in many government jobs, too, at the local level in particular. I was in Rochester, New York this past weekend, and there was a fear that they wouldn't be able to start school on time in that district because there weren't enough bus drivers. Similar situation down in Orlando, Florida. So you're going to see this across the board.
All right. It's great to have you both. Lanhee Chen and Julia Manchester, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Joe.
The Biden administration teeing up for a fight against Texas over the newly passed abortion law. You heard our last guest address that a bit. Attorney General Merrick Garland saying the Department of Justice is urgently exploring their options to challenge the legislation. Joining me now for more on this, criminal defense attorney Nicole DeBoard and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Randy Zellin. Randy, let's start with you. I guess the DOJ is trying to find an end around here. Can they do this?
It is putting a drop of whiskey on a pacifier and giving it to a child. What the DOJ is talking about is the ability to prosecute criminally or civilly acts of violence concerning a center that provides abortions. It is talking about preventing property destruction. But on the ultimate question of whether or not the Texas abortion law passes constitutional muster, that is just crickets. What the DOJ is professing to be able to do something about is absolutely zero when it comes to that.
So where does this stand, Nicole? Is this a fight between the feds and the state?
I think that it is a fight between the feds and the state. And the reality is that we are all going to have to just wait for a challenge that directly affects this law to go all the way back to the United States Supreme Court. No legislation is going to be able to directly impact the law that was made in Texas. Instead, the United States Supreme Court will have to address it via a facial challenge to the statute.
And Randy, I guess there are several. This is what, as Nicole just said there, I think we're teeing this up for a number of challenges, including what this is. You mentioned the FACE Act, right? I mean, this is part of what they're challenging on here, the DOJ, which is you have to have access under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. That's an act of 1994. And then you also have the government sort of skirting enforcement, giving that enforcement to regular citizens. I'm guessing that will be challenged as well.
Absolutely, but Nicole's point is a brilliant one. And as my friend Doug Burns likes to say, everybody needs to calm down and take a breath. The Supreme Court never said that the Texas abortion law passes constitutional muster. The Supreme Court bailed on the question on the merits and simply said, listen, you plaintiff here, sorry, you don't have what's called standing. You don't have skin in the game. And the Supreme Court said, we are not determining whether it's constitutional. In fact, the Supreme Court did everything but invite. Give me someone who has standing, and then we will look at the law and determine whether or not it passes constitutional muster. That seems to be lost in the panic or the fanfare over whether or not Roe v. Wade will still be good law.
So how does this work, Nicole? I mean, do you think it'll be challenged by someone who says citizens shouldn't be able to rat people out, I guess, if you will, or turn them in if they think they've had an abortion? I'm sure, as we talked about last week, there will be people who say, they're accusing someone of having an abortion, and that person would say, that's none of your business.
That's exactly right. There are a variety of parts of this statute that could be attacked by someone who is trying to not be affected by the statute, for example. So somebody who is seeking to have an abortion, for example, at a clinic might be the proper litigant for this case. It could be someone who was snitched out, if you will, for having aided someone. And so those are the types of cases that could go directly all the way up to the Supreme Court, not directly.
All right. Great to have both your voices on this tonight. We appreciate the insight and the time. Criminal defense attorney Nicole DeBoard and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Randy Zellin. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
American troops returning home from Afghanistan, but what about the other Americans still trapped, left behind there? Can we trust the Taliban to cooperate and get them out? And could the State Department be holding things up? And in tonight's American Snapshot, we'll take a look at how one teacher is making back to school feel pretty cool. Tonight, 4 more Americans are out of Afghanistan after the chaotic withdrawal from the country last week. Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen says an American family successfully evacuated yesterday morning. He says the young mother, named Miriam, and her 3 kids had gone to visit family and ended up getting trapped in Kabul after the Taliban took over. The Republican from Oklahoma says he recently returned from a somewhat secret and controversial trip to help bring home Americans left in Afghanistan. He said on Twitter, Miriam and the kids have been through so much, literally looking death in the face multiple times, including again today, but they never gave up either. Here to talk more about the continued efforts to get Americans out of Afghanistan is national security expert Jason Beardsley. Jason, it's good to have you back. Last we heard, we were going to get all Americans out who wanted out anyway, but it seems like this is the first we've heard, and there hasn't been a whole lot of action getting people out. What's going on?
What's going on is right now it's very difficult for people on the ground to work because they're relying on our State Department, they're relying on the United States government, the promise of the administration that we're going to get people out. But the promise isn't followed up with any meaningful action to clear flights out of Mazar-e-Sharif or clear flights into Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. So private groups on the ground, special forces, ex-special forces, charitable folks are all trying to do the work to get the rest of the Americans out that are supposedly staying behind for whatever reasons. And they're having a lot of difficulty right now. We need congressmen to weigh in on this administration and say, look, we need a finding to be able to facilitate the movement of the rest of our people from Afghanistan to third countries or back to America.
Let's listen in from the New Yorker's David Rode talking about the State Department and the Biden administration holding up these evacuations. We'll ask for your comments after.
Right now are 19 American citizens and their families and 40 SIV holders and their families. Those would be translators who worked with the United States military that are waiting to fly out of Mazar-i-Sharif on those charter planes. That is being held up by the State Department and the White House. I want to repeat that. It is the State Department and the White House.
So Blinken says the Taliban's allowing people with documents to leave. So which is it?
Well, we know what it is because we can look at the results. The results are Americans are not able to leave right now, at least under authorization or protection by the state. So we don't have to think too far. What we do know is the State Department has said or declared that they're working with the Taliban. They're essentially trying to negotiate, and they plan to cut a deal here, I think, this week in Qatar. But while those negotiations are ongoing, we still have Americans and SIV holders and Afghanis who are looking for other means to leave the country.
So are these unauthorized trips out, Jason? Why would the State Department or Biden administration get in the way of these planes that are looking to leave?
Oh, well, when people ask the question, what the State Department has said is something that comes down to bureaucracy or the notion that they haven't cleared the flights for reasons that are very opaque. We can't quite define from them. But folks on the ground are very frustrated. And again, they're calling back to congressmen and senators to try to get some help. So for folks listening out there, if you want to weigh in on this, the way to do it, I represent the Association of the United States Navy. Get to someone who can arbitrate for you in front of the senators and the congressmen to say, we want to see all of our people come home. And that means the SIV holders, Afghanis that we've made the promise to, and Americans on the ground.
The Secretary of State, Jason, is expected to testify before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee next week. Do you think that will be must-see TV? This will deal with the exit.
You know, it may be must-see TV in that we're going to hear a lot of people grandstanding and showboating. But I would recommend, first of all, we've heard from the State Department for over a month now. They've been very transparent about their plan, which is to rely on the Taliban to do the rest of this work diplomatically. So I don't expect to hear much more from the State Department other than what we've already heard. And I expect that we'll see a lot of congressmen and senators trying to get in front of that camera to make time. But right now, that's not as important as, look, come up with a finding, do your job in Congress, and work with the State Department to clear those flights out of the country. And if you're having problems we don't know about, we can't quite get into your bureaucratic business. We don't really care. What Americans care about is stand up to our promise and get those people home.
Right.
So we don't care how it's done. We don't want to hear the bureaucracy. We've heard that now for a month.
Right. In the 30 seconds we have left, Jason, the Taliban, another news note here, just announced a new government today, and they're filled with guys who are on our terror watch list. There's protests in the streets. Is this going to work?
By work, I think if you mean that we're going to have a great party to sit across the table from us, no. But we're left with the remnants of our foreign policy, and that's going to put us at the table with rogues, brigands, and terrorists. That's just the bottom line here. And the sooner we realize that, the better we can take some realpolitik action and get to some results that favor the United States, but in particular favor the people that need exfilled right now.
Right. Jason Beardsley, again, as always, it's great to have your voice. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Coming up, our American Snapshot, how one teacher is making school fun, masks and all. Day after Labor Day, and for most kids, that means back to school. Second full year students are facing this pandemic, but it's back to the grind, and we could take a lesson from this Illinois teacher in our American Snapshot. Her morning ritual with her students shows a positive attitude and a little creativity. Start your year off on the right foot here. It's a contactless way to greet the day. The idea of Illinois teacher Kelsey Field. She set a goal of memorizing the fun greetings by Labor Day, and she says they all nailed it. That's our time. Leland's next with On Balance.